VOA News. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. Top U.S. health officials warned Americans on Sunday that the United States will face a shocking coronavirus death toll in the coming weeks as the pandemic continues to ravage the country. U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams said Sunday that this is going to be the hardest and saddest week of most Americans' lives as the pandemic's death toll spikes to unprecedented heights during the peak of the outbreak. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said bluntly on Sunday that the extent of the death toll may be shocking to some. The U.S. has already recorded more than 9,100 deaths and 321,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, with officials predicting that eventually 100,000 to 240,000 could die from the pandemic. Models of the advance of the virus showed the death toll increasing sharply in the next 7 to 9 days. Roughly 25% of the world's 1.2 million COVID-19 cases have been reported in the United States, according to Johns Hopkins University figures on Sunday morning. Spain, which has reported the second highest number of cases, over 130,000, plans to extend its nationwide lockdown by 15 more days until April 26th. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said on Saturday he would ask Parliament to extend lockdown measures for the second time after first extending them to April 11th. Italy, which has recorded the highest death toll in the world from COVID-19, has seen more than 11,000 of its medical workers infected by the virus, according to its National Institutes of Health and an Association of Physicians. The group said about 73 physicians have died from the virus. Indications among medical personnel amount to nearly 10% of all infections in Italy. VOA News. The Midwestern U.S. state of Wisconsin is set to hold elections, including a Democratic presidential primary on Tuesday, with state officials at odds on how to stop voting during the national coronavirus pandemic. More than a dozen U.S. states have postponed Democratic presidential primaries in April and May. Those contests are to be held between former Vice President Joe Biden and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders to face President Donald Trump in the presidential election in November. As of Sunday, Wisconsin's vote is still planned, even if hundreds of polling places throughout the state cannot open for lack of Election Day workers. The workers by the droves have canceled their promise to work at the polls. Sanders has called for postponement of the election. Biden has said, whatever the science says, we should do. The United States has linked international aid for Afghanistan to the settlement of a protracted political crisis, which has seen the war-shattered country politically paralyzed and threatens to derail a nascent peace-building deal with the Taliban insurgency. Alice Wells is the top American diplomat for South and Central Asian affairs. She warned in a tweet on Sunday that all international donors must hold Afghan leaders accountable to agree on a governing arrangement. Separately, an American military spokesman has rejected insurgent allegations it was violating terms of the U.S. Taliban deal signed on February 29th. The political stalemate between President Ashraf Ghani and his chief rival, Abdullah, stems from the disputed presidential election in September 28th. The National Election Commission declared Ghani as the winner, but Abdullah, the runner-up, rejected the outcome as fraudulent. Both men have held rival presidential inaugurations. On March 23rd, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo visited Kabul to mediate between the two Afghan rivals. He failed in his mission. Pompeo immediately announced a $1 billion reduction in aid to Afghanistan this year, and potentially another $1 billion in 2021, unless the political feud is settled and an inclusive government is formed in Kabul. A dam that authorities in Rwanda say could contain about 30,000 bodies has been discovered more than a quarter century after the country's genocide, in which 800,000 people were killed. The discovery is deemed extremely significant. 50 bodies have been exhumed so far, but efforts are challenged by the East Asian nation's coronavirus-related lockdown. Rwanda on Tuesday marks the 26th anniversary of the genocide. The country will follow events on television because gatherings are banned. Via remote, I'm Marissa Melton. You're listening to VOA News.